Hello, welcome back to Unraveled Game Thoughts. My name is Wade. These are my unraveled ravings about my top 10 games, in this case, for the year 2015. Yes, 2015, that is correct. I guess you could say it's my top 10 list that I try to be fairly objective about if I can, even though there's definitely some subjectivity in this whole process. So, there you go. So, without further ado, my number 10 game for this year is by Eric M. Lang, and that is Bloodrage. Down here, ranked number 40 on overall, and it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in 2015, which is kind of nice. I've played this game, I think once, maybe twice on BGA. I enjoyed it. It's one of those games that I kind of want to come back to and play a little bit more and see, do I like it? I can't tell how much I really like this game, but it was fun, and I didn't really understand all the nuances to all the rules when I played it. I kind of just jumped in and started playing via an invite from a gaming buddy, and yeah, it was enjoyable. I think the theme is not one that I would typically go after. I see the cover, and I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I kind of see the cover and I think, oh, a huge area control battle game, most likely, which is not quite fair, but it's just not, I got 2 kids, and this is not the kind of game my wife enjoys, so this is not going to see the table at my house very often, most likely just due to the title and the setting. But that being set aside, it's a good game. I do want to play it again. I think probably it's a little bit overproduced. Just looking at the pictures here, I see a lot of minis. I don't know. I could see where this game is more fun with minis, but I don't know that it needs all the minis, and I think I got a pretty high price tag from what I understand. So if we go over, let's just take a look at a price tag here and get my page open, and let's go to Bloodrage. Bloodrage. See what comes up. So, it looks like there's one place you can get it for $57.99. Let's see where that is. Boardlandia. Probably a ding and dent price, most likely. Noble Knight, 81, 82, Amazon. So clearly this is the last one they have in stock, because every time Amazon has the last of a game in stock, the price will go way through the roof. That's usually how I know, oh, they must have their last copy in. And so you can almost always get it other places for less, or your local board gaming store, most likely. But that doesn't. Some of those prices don't factor in shipping either, so you have to factor that in a little bit. But I feel like it's a good game for number 10 this year. There were a reasonable number of games to choose from, and I had some tough choices. And this was, I put this at number 10. It probably could have flipped places with a few others, but since I played it and I like it, we're going to go with Bloodrage at number 10, which is a game that I have not played. I have only heard of this game being discussed on various podcasts. I feel like, if I'm remembering correctly, every time I've heard this game discussed, it is cited as being a great game. Not hard, not complex, but fun, with a really interesting theme. And this game is by Mike Fitzgerald. It's Baseball Highlights 2045. And I'll be honest, this is not a theme that I would typically go after, largely because I just am not a baseball fan. I'm a football fan, and by football I mean American football. I'm not a huge soccer fan, but I'm probably more of a soccer fan than I am of a baseball fan. Um, every once in a blue moon, if it's like the World Series or something, I might watch baseball. So a futuristic themed baseball game to me is kind of whoops, I don't know who that is. Just ran the picture on BGG. Um, it just doesn't appeal to me. But I would like to try this game one day because it's gotten good reviews on all the podcasts and gaming channels that I've heard describe it. So I would love to get it to the table sometime and just give it a whirl and see what I think of it. But I gave it my number 9. Easily could probably flip-flop that with Bloodrage, but I'm kind of going off my experience with Bloodrage and how often I hear Bloodrage discussed versus the number of times I've heard Baseball Highlights 2445 discussed. I feel like Baseball Highlights gets a slightly more positive vibe. Again, that's very subjective. So I'm going to take a sip of my IPA that is getting old in my fridge here. So I need to get it drunk. I don't need to get drunk. I just need to get my IPA drunk. It needs to be drunk. All right, moving on. Number 8. It is Arboretum by Dan Cesar. And let's see where Arboretum. I think Arboretum is actually pretty. Oh, well, here it is. 291, 7.1 rating. This is one of those games. I've never played it, but it is one of those games I've nearly picked up several times. And I think honestly, I'm just waiting for the right trade or something where it just gets added into another trade, or I can pick it up for $5 or $10 or something. Because I think this game would be a lot of fun. It's very colorful, sort of a set collection game with a tree theme. I think my daughter would love this game. She would enjoy the art and the cards. I think Becky would like this game. It's easy to take on a trip. Seems pretty pleasant to pull out, pretty quick to teach. So this is high on my I'd like to pick this game up at some point. I say high. There are lots of other games I would get in front of this game, but this is one that I would enjoy having, and I don't think I would part with it very quickly because there's quite a few games that are kind of small box games that I don't play a ton, but I like having them for the occasions that I want to have them. And Arboretum, I feel like, fills that a little bit. It also has 2015. I don't know if that's really standing the test of time, but I feel like it has really done well remaining in that one. It's 289. Oh, what else? 289, 291. So you're in the top 500 of games, and bear in mind there are, what is it, 50, 60,000 games in BGG, and this is number 291. So it's not bad. Having been around since 2015, I think it's doing all right, and I could see it possibly moving up the list above some of these, like Time Stories, Fury of Dracula. There's some here that I have heard people grow tired of, and I could see Arboretum gaining some momentum because people grow tired of other games where maybe Arboretum has a little bit more staying power in the long run. Maybe like something like a Splendor that I feel like it's somebody's favorite game, but it will hang out because it's not necessarily the kind of game people just get rid of. It's not like a Monopoly or Game of Life or something like that where you're like, let me get this out of my game closet. I don't want to play this. Sorry if you're a huge fan of Monopoly or Game of Life, but I'm counting on the fact that if you are, this is not the video you're watching. that you're watching something else on YouTube, and not this top 10 games list from 2015. So that is number 8, Arboretum. Moving on, let's talk about number 7. And once I've played Arboretum, I might end up moving it up into this slot potentially, but for now I put Mysterium. I technically have not played this game. I played it's like an updated version. I forget what it's called. Mysterium. It's like a shorter version of Mysterium. But I've read through the rules. I have prepared for the purposes of playing with my family, and then we hit a busy season and it just wasn't getting played. And whenever I have a game, I got it in a trade from somebody and traded another game away. I can't remember what I traded, but it was something we weren't playing. I thought Mysterium would be fun to try. I got it, ended up playing, I think it's Mysterium Park. And I enjoyed Mysterium Park. It was fun. Played it with some folks in our gaming group. But I don't know that it's a game that my family is going to be really excited to play much, even though it is fun. I think it's enjoyable. This is one of those games I would probably enjoy getting out every once a year, once every 2 years, but if it came in a smaller box that didn't take up a lot of room on my shelf, I might be more inclined to kind of keep it around just when I want a game like this. It's a big enough box. It's kind of your standard game size box, I guess you would say, and it takes up too much room on my game shelf for me to want to keep it around because it doesn't have that much draw for me to pull off the shelf. But for 2015, I thought this was great for number 7. It is a good game. It is the kind of game I would consider recommending to people who are maybe looking for a board game that's a little more experiential. And I think this has that dynamic, or they're looking for something more socially involved with some deduction. This is a great recommendation for that kind of if somebody who's not really a gamer wants something like that, then I would probably pull this one out of my hat and recommend it. But yeah, that is Mysterium at number 7, and designers, I can't really say their name very well. Oleksandr Nevsky and Oleg Sidorenko. I will write it out in the when I actually edit the video, but I don't know how to pronounce those names. I'm going to guess they're kind of Norwegian, but again, I could be wrong. So if you watch this, either one of you, and you're from Norway, forgive me. Maybe write out the pronunciation in the comments so that I can do a better job next time I do that. Which, moving on to number 6, I'm going to have another name here that I think I can say because I've heard it enough times, and that is going to be Codenames by Vlad Cheval. Now, you've probably heard of Vlad Cheval because he is also the designer of Magnate. And Codenames, let's see where it falls up here. It's ranked number 113 overall. Kind of think that's a little high for Codenames, to be honest, but I did give it number 6 on this list. I do think it's a good game. I enjoy it. I know there are those that don't really enjoy the time upkeep. In my plays of this, I have found it's very time consuming to try to come up with the words for your team. That's what a lot of the time investment goes into. But when you're trying to get your team to guess the words and you're actually flipping through those cards and seeing who can get through, get all the I forget if you're trying to get, you're not trying to get, what are you trying to get? You're trying to find the spies. And so when you're doing that, that's fun. I find that pretty enjoyable. the coming up with words. It's really tough. There's a painful tension to you came up with words and you're trying to get your team to guess, and you can tell that they're just going off track. But I find that enjoyable and adds to the fun and just makes me think, I didn't think of that aspect. So it's always fun trying to think through how do I develop words or come up with words that fit the personalities of the people that I'm playing with, because that makes a huge difference. If I play with Becky's parents, they're a different generation, and so the types of words or the types of things I will think will throw them off is pretty different than if it's Becky or my kids, for whom I can probably come up with some things that we know because we've experienced them. So if you're not familiar with code names, just on the I think most people have probably heard of this, and hopefully I'll see if I can drop the picture of the game off. But you basically have a bunch of these words, and you're going to put them in a grid. And this grid that you see here has already been like covered up because both teams have taken several guesses. And so the red team has 8 out here, and the blue team has 6. So right now the red team is doing better. But your goal is to get all of your get your team to guess all of your words, and all you can do is give them clue words and then a number. So you might say, like, if you were trying to get them to guess, I don't know, bottle and turkey, you might say, what's the name of that whiskey? It's got a turkey on the bottle. There's a whiskey manufacturer down here that has a turkey on the bottle. So if you were to say that company's name, you might say that turkey whiskey. You couldn't say turkey because obviously turkey is the name, the number, or the word on the card. But you might say whatever the name of the company is and 2, because you're trying to get them to guess these 2 words, and they would guess those, and hopefully they don't think of that oh, well, we have a guy in rehab because he was drinking too much whiskey, so he went to the hospital in an ambulance. So sometimes your team can trail off. But that is code names. It's a good, fun party game. I would recommend it as a party game. And even though there are plenty out there now and quite a few good ones, I think code names is still quite good compared to the party names. All right. That is number 6. Number 5, and I would probably move this down further, although I kind of imagine if I had expansions. Number 5 is Raiders of the North Sea, and I partly put this on there for a couple of reasons. One, I think this was Shem Phillips, one of his first games that really struck gold more than the previous renditions of this game. I think I played Shipwrights. I can't remember. I think there's another one even before Raiders that was. Let's see if we can find out what games came before it. But I don't think they really hit. Shipwrights was kind of so-so. It felt like a game that needed an expansion to be good, and Raiders of the North Sea felt like more of a complete game. I will still say that I believe it still needed more. Explorers of the North Sea, I think that was the other game. I think it needs a couple of expansions to be a really good game, and in my collection I have Raiders of Scythia, because Raiders of Scythia, this one over here, is kind of like Raiders of the North Sea with all the stuff, all the expansions already in there. I like the art from Raiders of the North Sea better, but I like Raiders of Scythia as a game because I don't have to buy 2 expansions to add to Raiders of the North Sea, which is what I'd have to do for Raiders of the North Sea. When I played it several times, but I've the time I enjoyed the most was playing with, at least I can't remember which expansion I played it with, but I think there were 2 expansions in the game, and when I got done playing, I didn't realize it was with 2 expansions, but I told the guy who brought the game, I was like, oh, I would not have liked this game nearly as much without at least one of these expansions. Both of them were quite nice to have. So, but it's Raiders of the North Sea. It's still a good game, and I think this kind of kicked off the Garfield games. Moving forward, I think the games that came after Raiders of the North Sea were fantastic. I still think they're fantastic, and this is one of those companies that I will almost always consider a new game when it comes out from them, because I think they do a great job in their design and implementation of games. So I gave that number 5. I do think this one will end up, it's number 95 overall right now. I think that'll slip off the list. I don't think that'll stay at 95 forever, because Raiders of the North Sea is really more of an okay game than it is a good, complete game by itself. And I just think other games are going to end up moving up that list ahead of it over time. All right, so number 4. We're over halfway through this list. That's impressive. All right. The Gallerist is my number 4 at 61. Well, my number 4 for 2015, 61 overall. This is a good game. Vital Lacerda. This is probably one of the easier Vital Lacerda games to get into. It's not terribly hard to learn. It's not terribly hard to teach. This playing time here, 60 to 150 minutes. I think that's funny. But it probably depends on the AP of people involved. Now, the good thing for this game is there are only, you have 4 total action spaces, and you can't take the action you were just at. So you only have 3 action space choices every turn. And but in those 3 choices, there is a lot of tough decision making that goes on, because each space has 2 options that you can take when you go to the space. Not to mention, if someone else is already at that space, you're going to kick them out and potentially give them an action. So there could be a little bit of that, well, I don't want to go there and give this player another action because I might be helping them out too much, and they're going to get an extra turn here. And so I'm going to go take this one over here that doesn't help me quite as much, but hurts them a little bit by me not taking it. So that's, I wouldn't say it's the kind of game that you would tend to think that way, but if you like a game with a little bit of gotcha and not too much, this probably fits the bill, because you can kind of outwit somebody who thinks they took a space because somebody else was going to grab it and give them an extra turn, and then nobody ends up taking it, so they ended up, they got their action, but they don't get that second action. 1 second. It's not easy to drink with a microphone on. All right. So let me show a few things here picture-wise, because this is a beautiful game. Now, if you're familiar with the Vital Lacerda games, they tend to be produced by Eagle Griffin. They all tend to be very gorgeous. But I think this is one of the earlier games. I want to say CO2 came before this one. Maybe Kanban EV. I think Kanban EV came out this year. But this, and just that Neapolitan color scheme is fantastic. Let me see if I can find some of the art here. I believe the art is actually depictions of art that was actually done by people, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they just drew the art. So on each of these pieces of art, there's actually like a little, it's like a little picture of the model or art that was done. So some of it I think is Ian O'Toole redrawing art, but they have lots of neat renditions of art on the little frames. So it's pretty cool. It's a neat. I like the mechanics of this game. They're not overly complicated, but it's fun. Um, the way the bonus points trigger is pretty unique. The track here that you can hopefully kind of see at the top of the screen. This is like multiple. So this is like your victory point track, but it's also like your you have to use your reputation sometimes to increase the influence, or use your influence to increase the reputation of the artists that you have in your gallery, so that you can sell their art for more. Well, this track, you can go backwards on this track to use your influence, basically giving away your influence or lowering your influence to increase their reputation. It also has a money track on here, so you can, if you need money at any point in the game, you can go back a space, or it's actually multiple spaces, so it's not always an easy decision to go back rep or go back money, but what's interesting is you can see that there's 5 spaces between one star and another star. Those are reputation stars. So let's say I started on 9, and I'm like, oh, I'm taking an action, but I need an extra coin. I would go back 1 space to this 3. I would get a coin. And then let's say I get kicked out, and I'm like, oh, I want to take the whole action. Then I could go down to this star here, and that would be losing enough reputation for me to take that action. So the way that ends up being is, like, if you're at 9 and you're gonna have to lose a reputation to take an action, it's a lot tougher decision, because you're basically going down 4 victory points to do that. But if you're at 6 and have to make the same decision, it's easy, because it's like, I'm going back 1 space to take that. Or same with money. If I'm here and I need another coin, well, I got to go back 3 spaces to get a coin. But if I'm only on 5, I just go back 1 space to get that coin. That's not too bad. So it's got really good, well-balanced mechanics, in my opinion. I kind of think it's hard to say it's underrated. It's pretty well rated. I don't know that this is really underrated. I kind of feel like it's overlooked a little bit in 2022, but I think that's largely the cult of the new, and Weather Machine's coming out, and so there's a lot of hype around that, and so it's a good game, though. Number 61 is a good place for it. I could see it possibly rising a little bit over time, maybe. I think, having played Weather Machine, I think the Gallerist is a better game than Weather Machine. Weather Machine's just newer and more popular and hasn't hit people's game shelf yet. So once, give it 5 or 6 years after both of those, that game's been out, then I think this one will end up kicking up a little higher than Weather Machine. So that is number 4, The Gallerist by Vital Lacerda. Okay. Number 3 is toward the top of this list, is Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization. Now, this is one of those games that I've played. I'm so-so on it. It's not my favorite game. I find it to be a bit fiddly, and I've never had the game or owned it, but I don't think this is a game I would ever buy. I'd play it with somebody. I might, if someone was willing to set it up and rehash the rules a little bit with me, I'd definitely play it again. But it's not high on my list of games that I've really enjoyed that much when I've played them. So, but it is a highly rated game and very much loved game by quite a few people. And this game probably falls into that ballpark. I mean, it's number 12 overall, so it's obviously holding its own on some level. And it's one of those that I think just fits a certain people like this game and like it a lot. So maybe like War of the Ring would be a good example. I love Lord of the Rings. I love the mythology. I love the lore. I've read books like the Silmarillion and some of those Tolkien history books. I find those very fun. War of the Ring, I'm just not big on area control battle sort of games, but I appreciate how good of a game it is, and I've got friends who it's like their favorite game that they, would never part with. And Through the Ages is one of those types of games for a lot of folks. So despite my not really thinking much of this game or caring to play it too much myself, I definitely felt like it was a number 3 for this year and worthy of that position. So there you go. And who is the designer? Oh, that's Vlad Cheval. Again, probably butchering his name. I'm so sorry, Vlad. But there you go. Through the Ages. Moving on. Number 2. All right. Food Chain Magnate is my choice for number 2. I think this probably, again, falls into the realm of games that aren't my favorite, but this is a beloved game by many. I think it is well designed. Jeroen Dubin and Joris Weersinga, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I've not played this game. I've watched a playthrough. I have some basic idea that it's like a kind of a business industry, kind of a cutthroat, I believe, sort of game where you can really mess the other players over at the game table if you know what you're doing. It is a game I would like to try at least once to see what I think, and I like the production value. I like the 1940s, 1920s theming. I think it's 1920s. I hope I'm not totally off on my air. It might be 1950s themed. I could be completely wrong on the decade that I'm talking about here, but it's a fun. It's fun to hear people describe their playthroughs and the interactions that occur around the table and the cutthroatness that happens. So there you go. That is Food Chain Magnate. I put that at number 2. Part of my rationale for putting that ahead of Through the Ages was I think this is a smaller publisher, for one, and I believe this is one of those games where it's like it's kind of got a high cost. I don't know that the cost of the game really equals out to the production value, but and that's why I have never. This is probably a game that if it was $40, I'd go buy it. I would think that's reasonable, but just looking at the parts and pieces here, I mean, I've got games that are half the cost of this one and have maybe it's got a lot of wooden pieces, so I don't know, could that have been cardboard? Maybe it's a little more deluxeified than I thought. So just looking at it here, I don't know what that paper money is like, if it's really nice paper money or if it's kind of flimsy. The cards look pretty sturdy. They look like really thick cards from what I can tell. So maybe it is a higher production value, but higher production value. But at $109, it's hard, especially for a game that I think would be too cutthroat for my family. I am hesitant to get it just to put it on the table with whenever I have a game night. Let's check out see if that's the regular cost there. 99. So it looks like you can get it for 99 from a couple places, but 109, 101. Apparently they have one copy on Amazon. Let's check that out. I'm just curious if they actually have one copy, but this is so Amazon to. Oh, we got one copy. Let's hike up the price here to $214, which is still twice as much as you would pay anywhere else. So that's kind of ridiculous. But there you go. Food Chain Magnate. Good game. I think it might even be going up on the overall. I mean, it's 34 overall, so it's pretty high, but I could see it passing Viticulture. I could see it passing Seven Wonders Duel. I mean, there's some games I see here that I could see it moving up ahead. So there you go. And now for the number one game of 2015. It actually is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Again, never played it. I actually owned this game for about 6 to 8 months. Got it just before COVID hit. Tried to pull it out during COVID, and my whole family was like, nope, we don't want to play anything that has to do with a pandemic. So it was just like, sat on my shelf. Finally, I ended up trading it for, I forget what. I traded it off for something else that I play more now. And this is by Rob Davio and Matt Leacock. And I'm sure it's a great game. I've had several friends and family tell me, this is a fantastic game, you got to play it. I believe it. I enjoyed Pandemic, the base game. I will say this about Pandemic. It's not a game that I feel drawn to. And I don't think that's because of COVID. I think before all of that, it wasn't the game that really pulled me toward it personally. But I mean, I can't ignore the fact that so many people and friends that I know have played this love it and greatly enjoyed it. And so I gave it number 1 for 2015. It was really hard not to. I mean, it's number 3 overall, so that's hard to fight. I mean, if I was a bigger fan of Through the Ages, I might have flipped that up over Pandemic possibly. But yeah, I couldn't. And just as I kind of wind down here, some of the honorable mentions that were on the list. I did not even consider Viticulture Essential Edition. So I counted Viticulture earlier. I think it was in my 2014 or 2013 list. I can't remember which one. And I think it made that list. But since Essential Edition and Tuscany are kind of basically Viticulture upgrades, I don't count Viticulture in a future year, because I already counted when I considered Viticulture in that first year. I kind of consider Viticulture in all the things that have been added on to make it better. So kind of like Tapestry, whenever we get to the year that Tapestry is in the list of games, I would consider Tapestry with not just the base game, which probably wouldn't even have made a top 10 list, but I consider it, what is it now with Plots and Ploys and with Arts and Architecture? Is it now, how does it rank? So I try to consider these games with all of their subsequent additions and add-ons. So Raiders of the North Sea in and of itself probably doesn't make the top 10 list for 2015, but Raiders of the North Sea with its expansions it's a good game, and I enjoy it, and it makes a top 10 list. So that's just a factor that I play in there. Some that didn't make it, Seven Wonders Duel, I just couldn't put it on there. 19, I think this is an overrated game. I've played it a couple times. I honestly think Seven Wonders is an overrated game. I don't think it's a bad game. I have Seven Wonders. I enjoy playing it every now and again. But I think my family enjoys it more than I do. And Becky has said she does like it. I would probably trade Seven Wonders away. And if I had Seven Wonders Duel, I might keep that one over Seven Wonders because it's a little quicker version of it. But it's just, in my mind, just too much. It feels like too much of a luck factor to me, and it does not please the crunchy thinking part of my brain to play this game. So Seven Wonders Duel did not make the list. I felt these other games were just better games overall. than that one, but I do know that lots of people love it, and I've had people try to talk me into loving it, but I just nope, doesn't do it for me. Kingdom Death Monster, I just didn't feel like it's 56 overall. I've never played this game. I've watched it played. I've played Gloomhaven. I've played Sword and Sorcery. I've played Descents, Journey into the Dark. I've played what is that? Mage Knight. And they're all different. So Kingdom Death Monster to me looks a little bit kind of like a mix between maybe Gloomhaven and Sword and Sorcery. Maybe a mash of those things to some degree, but I think this is overrated personally. I've never played it. I've only watched it be played, but it just does not do it for me. I don't really have a desire. I would love to play it once just to see what I think, playing it in person and how it compares with some of those other games I have played. But watching it does not make me want to go chase it, and I know that it's a pretty pricey game. Time Stories, I think, is just gonna wear out over time. Not bad, good game. I think people have enjoyed it, but I think it's gonna, over time, it'll just lose its thing. Potion Explosion was another one. Coffee Roaster was another one that I considered. But yeah, so those are some of the runners up. And if you watched the whole video, thank you for sticking with it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And until next time, have a great weekend.